Good morning, everyone, and a big hello from here in Bendigo in Victoria. I've been on holiday since the end of last week. Obviously, we've had the Christmas break and coming up to the new year. I'm actually off for the whole of January. I didn't do a live last weekend. I was actually catching up with my dad on Boxing Day. I was on the road on Christmas Day. My plans were mucked up a little bit because of the outbreaks in the northern beaches of Sydney, and obviously Greater Sydney was declared an orange zone, and the state government said if you're coming back from those areas you'd have to quarantine for 14 days at their own cost, and I wasn't going to bear the brunt of that. I could travel into regional New South Wales, what was regarded as a green zone. Overall, I checked all the information there, and yeah, it was all good. So I'll switch the other way around. I usually see my mother and stepfather on Christmas Day, and obviously a day or two later I'd try and catch up with my father. But obviously the plans were mucked up. My parents were. My mum was pretty good about it. She had a quiet day at home, and obviously the rest of the family did. But it was good to catch up with my dad anyway. He's getting on now and very well aged. And I guess, well, one thing, parents don't last forever. And I'm not going to explain his condition, but he's doing quite well. And it was good to catch up with him for once. So Christmas was very interesting for me. As I said, I was on the road most of the day, and on Boxing Day I spent all day with Dad. And it was great to actually spend that time with him. And obviously, a few months ago, I wrote the whole time off, all the Christmas, New Year period off, the way everything was going here, and I think it was good to finally get back to seeing some people I haven't seen for well over a year. I did say to Dad, I was hopefully, if things do smooth out next year with this situation with COVID, we'll be able to spend some more time with him, and maybe have a few days off here and there just to go up and see him. I think it's very important all the time to actually spend that time with parents. It dawned on me not some time back, actually, gee, they're getting on, and it's time to actually spend a little bit more quality time with them. I think it's vitally important. But yeah, the situation with COVID just currently at the moment, most of the outbreak was in Sydney. We've had cases in other states, including Victoria here, but mainly those coming back returning from overseas. They're in hotel quarantine. I think a couple of people returning from Sydney, they're currently in hotel quarantine at the moment, but no community transmissions, which is a very big plus. Victoria, I think we're about 61, 62 days. Don't quote me on that number of no community transmission whatsoever. So that's a good thing. It was a bit worrying though when I was in New South Wales, and I will be going back there tomorrow. We'll be catching up with some very good friends of mine that live in regional New South Wales in the green zone. Spend New Year's with them. What was interesting is just how relaxed everyone was about it up there so much. Although people that do live regionally, I've got concern, there's a lot of elderly people who live regionally, and the amount of people leaving Sydney and visiting these regions, and I'm just thinking, we took drastic action here in Victoria to reduce the amount of cases, to get the numbers back down, to reduce it down to zero. We put the ring of steel on Melbourne metropolitan and other critical areas. In that way, it had to drive this stop the spread of the virus. People were running free like right and centre, not wearing face masks. Now there's cases being discovered in Wollongong, and I think, how blasé can you get with this? The other thing as well, with the Premier of New South Wales, Gladys Berejiklian, I think her name was. I mean, I've never seen anyone so corrupt and so useless in dealing with this at all. And all she's more worried about is not inconveniencing people. What actually started a lot of the viruses, the outbreak on the northern beaches, because she allowed all these wealthy travellers coming back from overseas, and they didn't have to quarantine for 14 days. Letting well-paid actors or movie identities and other millionaires and such, people on high incomes, just allow them to roam free. Now they have this problem, and if the situation was something like myself or you or anyone in the generally working class, we'd have to quarantine for 14 days, and she just allowed that to happen. I think, well, it's going to turn around and bite her at the end of the day. And I'd actually say corrupt, because I do mean it. I think it's sort of the worst government they've had. I just thought, well, look, New South Wales governments previously, yes, they've had corrupt governments, and I thought you couldn't lower the bar any further. But on this particular one, the bar has been lowered. I don't know how further it can be lowered, but it was just absolutely disregard for public health. Now, I'm not trying to inconvenience people, but this is a real life thing. People have died from COVID-19, not just people with pre-existing injuries or because they're elderly. What I meant is pre-existing conditions. There's also been a lot of young people as well. Interesting, there's now the long-term effects if you do get it. I've been reading up in the media, the long-term effects this has had on people. The symptoms still persist after you do recover. There is also, too, the long-term effects internally on your organs, the brain, respiratory, even how you function and you can walk. And people have actually now got fatigue. This whole COVID-19, I don't think I think we've only scraped the surface to understand what the long-term effects of this virus is. But no, we've got a government there who's more interested in who obviously is obeying its capitalist masters to keep the system going. That's more important than people's health, obviously, and well-being. But I think overall, in the long term, we'll wake up to the fact that the governments that are elected up there do not represent their interests at all. They will have to come to that realisation that the people they do have part in Parliament up there do not represent their interests at all. And those people elected in their Parliament are not thinking about their well-being at the same time. But this just comes to show you, obviously the Murdoch empire is sending praise on her, which doesn't surprise me. He's obviously congratulating you. You're not threatening us by putting the system on hold while the people's well-being and health is more important. Good, we're keeping it continuing. So we'll just have to watch the situation there. Pardon me. Let's get a drink of water. All these places, there's dust in the air that does affect my cough. It makes me cough a little bit. Let me adjust this camera. So going back to what I was saying in New South Wales, we'll just have to monitor it. I think it's just where it was laissez to walk into a shopping centre, people without face masks, or very few people do it. And I've got the contrast here. If you go into a shopping centre or into a supermarket, you have to wear a face mask. It's simple as that. Simple as that. And we're trying to keep the spread down as much as possible. And obviously we don't want to see a large-scale outbreaks and we don't want to be in a situation what's happened with the US, which is just a disaster. The whole health system's just collapsing, left, right, and centre. The amount of new cases are coming in, and a lot of people that cannot treat anymore. And so the death tolls is going to escalate there. Same within the UK, and no doubt in Europe as well. And I think us in Australia, we certainly do not want to go down that path. And I certainly do not, even personally, I don't want the virus, and I certainly don't want anyone else to have the virus as well. But it's interesting, the vaccinations, we're due in about March, I think, for them. I think they had to prioritise a few countries at the moment, especially the ones with high amounts of COVID-19. With Australia, although considerably compared to the rest of the world, the number of cases is still quite low, but that doesn't stop us from being complacent. I think where the governments will prioritise, obviously, the frontline workers will need to, the most vulnerable in the community, such as the elderly or those with pre-existing conditions, and then so on. I will get the vaccine, and myself, I know there was the big fight between Pfizer, I forget now, I've got the name of the other multinational against the Russian and Chinese vaccines. It's a competition. I can see companies like Pfizer, they want to monopolise or at least have a duopoly of the situation and make their profits. That's what capitalists do, and we're in that era of imperialism, and where we're seeing further and further monopolisation. And they obviously want to push everyone else out of the market, make sure everyone's dirt broke, but you have to buy their product. Again, so I see that. But look, regardless of that fight at the moment, I talked about that in a previous video. I think what I'll do, I'm going to get it as soon as it's readily available. Choose to. It's interesting, just on the vaccines, they're talking about allowing people, if you had the vaccine, if you're returning from overseas or happen to be travelling from overseas to Australia, about being exempt from quarantine. So, but what the question, I think sometimes the thought on the back of my mind was, well, let's just test how this is very effective as well, how effective it is. We don't want to actually have someone displaying symptoms, and though they might have had the vaccine, we obviously just didn't let them out in the community. I think we've just got to monitor it at the moment for the company, we just allow people coming from overseas, all right, you've had the vaccine, you're okay, and if you haven't, go off into quarantine. I think we've just got to monitor that and have further study of the situation. But typical of capitalist governments, of course, the well-being of the community is not a number one priority. The system needs to keep going, so that's what that's all about. I think also too, COVID-19, there's a lot of talk about the state of the economy at the moment. Obviously, the world economy and where Australia stands at the moment. Someone sent a comment to me the other day in this relation, and I'll actually set up having an interview with him. That's Comrade Freaky. He's based out of Darwin. He's one of the first people of the land. I'd like to actually do one with him, but he actually made an interesting point how we are actually going down the line of Argentina, because a lot of where Australia is going economically is what's happened to Latin America, especially during the 1990s, and what we're seeing here in Australia, some interesting parallels as well. And there was made comment that the Morrison government's considering actually applying to the IMF for a loan. How many billions, I don't know. That's as much as I know at the moment. But the interesting parallels, we do that, and then what happens? The country defaults, we go further into debt. Whatever's left in public ownership will be sold off. Further increases of economic inequality. You could just see where we're going. And we are part of the global south. Interesting, someone did mention to me the other day, oh, aren't we part of the West? I said, no, that's incorrect. We're actually part of the global south along with New Zealand. Yes, we've got a first world type conditions here at the moment, but things are actually spiraling out of control. Wealth inequality or economic inequality is actually increasing. And this Christmas has been a very big test. The news did, a lot of the common mainstream media actually did a little bit more commentary on this. The amount of people that turned up to the charities asking for charity over Christmas, charity help, obviously having takeaway dinners and that for Christmas. And these are whole working families. I'm not just talking about someone who happens to be homeless, even though homelessness is increasing tenfold. A lot of families are defaulting on their home loans here, or on their mortgages here in Australia, and a lot more is going to escalate next year. I wouldn't be surprised in the first quarter of next year, just if it escalates. Fingers crossed it doesn't, and I don't want to see anyone lose their home either. But that's something to worthwhile to keep an eye on what's happening here, and the income, the reduced incomes, and the federal government's brought up this is what they wanted to plan, is reduce the income capacity of the working class even further. And keep in mind, the working class is the main consumer. It's the consumer of our society. But the less they're able to consume and are able to spend and buy those necessities, the further crisis Australia is heading. And it just comes to completely show that capitalism has got no solution whatsoever for us anymore. It's trying to seek further and further profit on the expense of the population and the environment too. I'll talk a little bit about the environment in a minute, but just going back to what the economic inequality that's happening here in Australia, the less able the gross domestic product is collapsing. Now, GDP, we're nearly close to $1 trillion in debt. And that's huge for Australia. Keep in mind, for all of you overseas, around the world, Australia only has a population of 25 million people, give or take. Okay, we have a massive, large landmass. We're an island continent. We're an island nation, but the population 25 million, and most of the population's on the eastern strip, the southeastern strip of Australia, pretty much from north of Brisbane right down through to Adelaide, for that eastern strip, and the Murray region, Victoria, etc. That certainly is, and obviously the pocket of the southwestern part of Western Australia. It's the northern coast and the remote areas. There's a lot less people there, but we are, for a population like ours, that is huge. How we'd ever actually pay that off? Well, it'll take generations. Someone actually said it'll probably take about 4 generations possibly 5 to pay off anything like that at all. And that's if capitalism was around for that long anyway. I don't, and basically too, if politically we don't have strong leadership in this country. Well, actually, I'll take that little bit. I will recognise when good work's done under this COVID-19. I think the Daniel Andrews government of Victoria has done an exceptionally good job. Yes, the mistakes were made, etc., but he took it by the mantle and dealt with it. Unlike contrast with New South Wales, they've got weak leadership and corrupt leadership. It just shows the different contrast. And our federal government couldn't give two hoots about our national health, even though they might like to say a lot of things they want to do and they're enjoying some popularity. Let's face it, what have they done for COVID-19? They've only attacked those state governments have done to try to do the right thing, and those and support those who have done the complete wrong thing. So, and they didn't come out with a proper nationally coordinated plan as well. Now they're on the attack to attack our working class conditions as well, at work, out of work, wherever. Obviously, some certain industrial bills put towards Parliament. There's going to be a big campaign of that next year. But obviously what it is to further exploit workers further. That's what it is. But all they're doing is fast-tracking the crisis of capitalism at a faster and faster rate. They're doing nothing whatsoever to actually trying to alleviate that, trying to turn things around. No, they're not. But that's their solution. Always keep in mind the political superstructure of the economic base, of the capitalist economic base. You have parliaments. You have mainly majority two parties in opposition and government, regardless of what their names are, but their role is to maintain and assist capitalism to seek further and further profit. That's what they originally all set up to do. Not there to actually get rid of it, but actually maintain capitalist power and also to help further improve profits. And obviously we're seeing that it's quite obvious now what's happening here in Australia. So next year is going to be a huge takeoff. I think the fight's going to be pretty much on by the time everyone's coming back to work by mid to late January and start of February. It's going to be on. The fight's going to be on. I think we're going to be seeing it now struggle escalate. Now that might sound a bit premature for me to say that, but struggle will go and escalate. That's out of my control. I think it's a lot of people are now be forced into a position. Well, there's only two choices. You can either fight or flee. And if you're going to flee, where are you going to flee to? There's no more room to flee anymore. One spot as good as the next. And so the only option you've got is to fight. And I think we will see that happen. I think obviously the unions hopefully, they're going to be under a lot more attack, and I'll talk a little bit about this disamalgamation bill shortly. That's in federal parliament. Well, I think actually what happens, I know not every union, but I think a lot of unions like the one I'm with, will obviously have big growth in membership as well. We've actually, interesting through this COVID-19, we actually hadn't shrunk in membership here in Victoria, actually grown. We've got a lot of unfinancial members. We obviously removed them off the books, but we've actually grown. So it's been despite the difficulties the current situation is thrown upon us, we've actually managed to struggle through and come through an end there. So next year is going to be very, very interesting. Now, I did talk about a couple of things I want to talk about. This union disamalgamation bill that's put through. It's called the divorce law. For those of you overseas who are unfamiliar, a lot of unions over the last 30, 40 years have amalgamated from smaller unions into larger ones. Some are on an industry level, some are like a bolt-on type unions. Well, there's one particular bit of legislation, the disamalgamation bill, that's directed also towards the CFMMEU, but also be directed to other unions. And it's such a worse time for any type of union to break up the working class. It's basically a divide and rule legislation. And unfortunately, I won't mention names at the moment, but there was those in that particular union have been actually having quiet secret meetings without anyone else's knowledge prior to that, because they are just more worried about their own political ambitions and their own and rampant opportunism as well. So they're always at the seat of the table with the bosses. They're allowing this bit of legislation to come through. I think it's a real bad time to have that on the working class. We need to have solidarity. We have to be united. Right, we're going to have, obviously, yes, we're going to have obviously difference of opinions and many views and thoughts and ideas in how we can move forward. That's fine. There's nothing's perfect, but and obviously, if we can have a united working class, it's going to be literally near impossible that everyone has the same opinion on everything. But what it is, this is the worst time to try and disamalgamate and trying to divide us even further. And what they want to do is basically then allows the bosses, the capitalists, to have further control of the outcomes of any type of struggle whatsoever. So we're in smaller little unions that and with real toxic legislation thrown on top of that, and allow them the inability to operate. So basically, it's a way to legislate into more company yellow type unions. I think that's a real bad time to put it. And for those in the union movement, those particular individuals, so I won't mention their names at the moment. They know who they are, and if they ever come across us, you know exactly who you are. Well, doing that, aside being opportunism, that's a form of being a class traitor as well, as far as I care. That's going against the rank and file decisions, not representing the interests of the rank and file members of those respective unions. It's your own political ambitions, and I'll come out saying this: there is no place for you in the struggle anymore. In fact, you've gone to the other side. You've just clearly shown your true colours in doing that. It's the worst time to do anything when the working class is under attack, is to actually argue for more disunity and to break us up even further. So really, all the best things you can do is hand in your resignation and go and kill yourselves. Those union leaders. Sorry to come out with that. I know it's not very mature of me to talk that way, but I am really over at those who actually stabbed the working class in the back. I really have been over it for a long time, and that's just how I feel about them. So yes, your resignation and suicide will be greatly accepted. Otherwise, because doing that to the working class and trying to divide us further and fight amongst ourselves, well, quite frankly, there's no place for you with us anymore. Go. You obviously want to side with the parasite class. You're agents with the parasite class. That's what you are. You're agents you're stooges of imperialism. That's what you've done. You've exposed yourself. Go to that way, and we'll see you after we've won on the field of victory as well. So yeah, sorry about that, a little bit angry. I could actually go right off my brain about it, but it really is. It's something that really does make me angry. I mean, how you declare yourself to be a servant of the working class, servant of the people, and go around and then stab them in the back by trying to argue for a bill that's there to deliberately divide and conquer us even further and to grind the working class into the ground. How can that be? Absolutely. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So for all those comrades out there, especially my fellow union members, we cannot allow this bill. We have to fight this. Don't allow anyone to try and say why we should disamalgamate. What would be the strategy around behind that? At the moment, look, amalgamations in the past, were they perfect? No. There were a lot of other reasons why they happened, But however, this is just the worst time, especially any time, to bring that in. And obviously, if a union needed to sort of disamalgamate, make up, there has to be a real good strategic and important reason that will advance the working class further, not one that was going to put them 10 steps back to where we're at the moment. So that's obviously where we're at the moment. And look, I've just got to put a big shout out to Arctic Angel. Thank you for joining on board. I believe there's some others watching here, so hello and good morning. And I think it's, I think actually, yes, we don't like traders. And obviously, and that's what they are. They're class traders. And that's what they are. And there's plenty of them out there, unfortunately. But they're products of the capitalist system as well. I know there's been talks about senior union official leaders in the past in the Labor aristocracy. Well, they're actually not the Labor aristocracy, all right? I'll do a discussion about that in another video if you like. But there has been a history of it. I can understand that, and I think some people on the left, and people watch these chats and Caleb's chats and Dust's, etc. Look, I can understand that, but the fact is, workers do need unions, regardless of what we thought. What we got to do, besides building wrong unions, is how we can turn them into much more fighting organs of the working class, just not ones around basic wages and conditions, although very important. fact is, how are we going to turn them into higher levels of struggle, right? Higher levels of working class or fighting organisations? And that'll be the discussion. We're going to move forward with it, and they will always be part of that struggle as well, and also to win all those workers over to socialism. That's one of the most. It's not just a matter of just having concessions out of the capitalist class, which is becoming fewer and fewer and less now. I think what's got to be important is how we're going to win those workers over to the cause of socialism. That's got to be the important one, where we can have a rash economy based around where production is based around a centrally organised plan, where our productive forces are increased and so much material abundance is created that there's no requirement to actually have classes anymore if we get to that higher level of communism. So welcome aboard any of those coming in. Good morning, 199, and Comrade Reese as well. Big shout out to Comrade Reese. He does some excellent videos. Please go to his YouTube channel. I enjoy his presentations as well. He did a good documentary about how close we were in nuclear war many years ago, and it was based on a movie. It was actually I have to quite agree with him. It was damn right, actually quite frightening as well, how close we were back then. But it comes to show it's excellent. I think you can I think it's on YouTube. If you can't, you can download it using other methods as well. And I believe Comrade Bruce, I've got to sort at the time out. I have talked to Dust James. I'm welcoming Comrade Reese. We will be this weekend. Be doing a live on working class revolts. It'll be myself, Dust James, and Comrade Reese. It'll be excellent to talk about what currently the struggle in the UK is as well, and be up to date there. So going back to it, I think, look, this is just what's happening here in Australia. So there's obviously some talk about that as well, about trying to break up unions even further and just give the power to the capitalists absolute power overall. So we are in for a big fight ahead here in this country. And mind you, there's other things as well. Basically have a fully casualised workforce, which is on-off type workforce. And that was actually that allows the employers, instead of actually providing full-time employment where you do enjoy the benefits of annual leave and sick leave and other entitlements that are hard fought for over the last 150, 200 years. That for those workers that we tend to enjoy today. Casuals don't get that. They only get a loading on top of that to try and compensate for a period of time, and it's not secure employment as well. So that's obviously two big things, but also allows then there's another bit of legislation that allows the employers to dictate the terms and conditions of an agreement, which might cover a construction project, but will obviously flow into other industries. So basically, so they can reduce and push the wages and conditions further down. Typical classic class struggle on wages and conditions, where they're trying to increase their profit while at the same time reducing the wages, which will inevitably lead to further crisis. And obviously there is no way out. The capitalist system has got no way out, no way forward for us for anymore. Also, too, just on that, we here in Australia there's talk now, there's pressure from the federal government from the Victorian government to fast track a lot of foreign workers or visa workers to help the farmers out. Now, we've just give you an overall picture. This year we came out of a real severe drought. We had the bushfires around this time last year, right through to about the end of January, early February. But we had a lot of good rain. There's a lot of abundance crops besides wheat and barley and the grains, but also vegetable and fruit as well. Now, for many, many years now, a lot of the harvesting of fruit and vegetables has been done a lot by immigrant labour, brought in for a particular scheme called a 457 visa scheme. So the employer or a farmer, whatever, a business, has to actually meet a certain requirement that they've exhausted all avenues to try and employ local people. There's not enough local people to employ, so they have to bring them in as top-up labour. But the thing is now, it's been set up in such a way that they'll allow the ruthless exploitation of foreign labour coming in, because they're determining the wages and conditions to these workers, and they'd be paying them next to nothing wages. We're paying them by so much the tonne of how much fruit and vegetables picked, or how many, and etc. Now, there are one union in particular is doing a lot of excellent work in that field, United Workers Union, and have actually exposed how these workers are really ruthlessly exploited, the accommodation they've been kept in, to the conditions they have to work under, and it's very hard physical work. It's not like I like myself or something. I enjoy doing. I enjoy growing my own fruit and vegetables. I've got a little vegetable garden, and I quite enjoy that. But it's not like that. It is hard physical work, and can be quite backbreaking as well. Now, the fact is, they're looking to try and further see how we can fast track this. Now, also the interesting question: why haven't they exhausted any trying to source local workers as well? Because we've got a lot of high unemployment happening, and it's increasing. It's only temporary work. It's seasonal work. It's only for, things only grow for a particular season. But why aren't they utilised as well? And what we found out, they won't employ a lot of these farms, and big multinational farms won't employ locals. Only a simple reason: they accuse them of being lazy. It's not that. It's because they want to pay. They're not going to accept very low piecemeal type wages at all. Instead of actually having a strong award or agreement put in place, an industrial instrument put in place to protect certain rights and conditions and regulate the terms of wages and conditions. Instead, no, they just want to have a free fall. So basically, it's piecemeal type of work. They're obviously looking up to over 100. Yeah, we're probably actually looking up to around about, say, over 30, 40, 50,000. And it's quite a huge industry. Don't quote me on that number. I'll have to actually look in that research. I have to research that a little bit further, the actual number, the figure. But besides the point, this is what they're trying to do as well. Now, in the end of the day, I mean, everyone talks about the poor farmer. Yeah, there's plenty of them out there. But also, what about the poor workers that actually work on these areas? And obviously, organisations like unions like the United Workers Union doing exceptionally, trying to do a good job here, especially in Victoria. And my big shout out to those officials. I know them personally, that are working in that field, and obviously exposing it and trying to organise those workers as well. But it just comes to show you that regardless of whoever forms government, Liberal, Labor, they do not care. Their main thing is they'll put the legislation in place to make it easier for those workers to be exploited further and fast-tracked in to quickly harvest it and out, so they can get these fruit and veggies out to market as soon as possible. But who loses out? Well, besides those workers themselves that are harvesting and receiving piece poor meal, and they'll be sent back after they're finished, they'll be sent back to their country of origin, and they don't have any job security, they don't have any other forms of entitlements. If they happen to speak up, they could be on the first plane out of here again. So this just tells you how precarious. And if any other outside firm that's organising these workers, not in the sense to fight, but to organise and have them coming over here, they'll take their cut out of the pay as well. And we've actually found that out a lot in these visa schemes. There's a lot of very questionable organisations that have been trying to take their cut of the pie as well. Now, when a lot of these workers are over here working, they're also under the threat not just of unemployment or facing the sack they're on the plane, but their families are threatened as well. It was interesting a few years ago when I was working in the Pilbara as an organiser up there in the northwest of Western Australia. Myself and a few other union officials from other unions, we actually went to a training session about human trafficking. And it's rife here in Australia as well. I'm not talking about the sex slavery, sex industry side of it as well, but we're also talking about common work. Cleaning is a huge issue, like cleaners. That the real low-paid, low-skilled side of all the industries is huge market there for that side of it, and a lot of criminal organisations have been involved in that as well. Now, if these workers actually do speak out, their families are actually also under threat as well, because they're threatened. You speak out, we'll do your family over in one way or the other, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing, especially human trafficking. It definitely escalated after the deliberate dismantling of the USSR and the Eastern Bloc. It certainly escalated, and just remember, it wasn't about sex slavery either. There was also a lot of these people being used as drug couriers as well, with no choice. They're actually put to the gun to their head. You don't do it, we'll go and kill you, we'll kill your family as well, but also for those industries that have very low pay and where workers are ruthlessly exploited as well. And so they're basically left with no rights. This is capitalism in the raw, if you want to look at it that way. So a lot of these workers are not willing to speak out about the actual current conditions, and that they do need to have their assistance and the reassurance that there's people there to help them and bring them in. And it takes time to win their trust over. A lot of them don't speak simple English as well, or very limited. So the language problem, the language barrier can be an issue as well. But to have that worry, you're born over here, okay, off you go, do what you have to do. And then the worry at the same time, worrying about your immediate family, your children, your partner, and also your extended family as well. That is a very concerning thing. And unfortunately, this is where it happens. And have the government's been complicit over this? A big yes. They've been over their heads in it. They know exactly what's going on. But will they do much about it? They may actually throw a little band-aid here and tighten something up here, but to actually get to the root cause of the problem, no, they won't. So when I was reading it through the newspaper here, the Age, today's Age, which is one of the main newspapers here in Victoria, they're talking about how there's a chronic shortage and there's a lot of pressure on the Victorian government. Yes, we need to actually open up here and do this and that and allow these extra workers in there. But what guarantees, what safety nets are guaranteed to these workers? And I can tell you what, there'd be next to none. Well, if there are safety guarantees, it's going to be next to minimal. And that's all. And that's all they're going to get. And so it is a concern. And I think, look, any union that's actually trying to do some hard work out there for these workers, not just unionise for the hell of it, but actually help them, to assist them and to actually strengthen their power even further, needs to actually have all the support in the world. And look, Australia is not the only country this happens to. It happens in the US, it happens in Canada, it happens in New Zealand, it happens all around the world. Europe, UK, it's certainly they're right up over their heads about this. And it just shows you, once again, just how capitalism is just cannot no longer, it just shows you how obnoxious and how on the nose capitalism is. And it does not care. It will be right ruthless in how to achieve profit. And so this is what we're seeing here in Australia as well. And it shows you, if we had actually a government of action that fights for working families, then the outcome would be quite significant. And not only that, they'd have a safety guarantee net, an industrial instrument put in place that workers in that industry will be formed into more of a cooperative, or maybe around a centrally organised plan. Those workers have got guaranteed safety nets and guaranteed proper, real wage or pay and conditions as well, wages, whatever. And also, if there was a need to bring in further immigration to fulfil a short-term gap, then it would be highly regulated as well. And those workers should be able to benefit at the same time and know that they're guaranteed that they're going to be safe and their families are going to be safe over their country of origin as well. But no, it's not under this current system as well. So it's going to be an ongoing fight. But it's something that I picked up on, and obviously the mainstream media is only touching on about it. They're only maybe short little articles. Surprise, surprise, because they see the bourgeoisie doesn't want us to be fully aware about this as well. So it's obviously what we're seeing here in Australia is no different from around the world. The situation is economically for us here in Australia is going to become a lot worse as well. We also too, we've just seen, it'll be interesting to see what the Boxing Day sales and all that, how much actually people are out there, their spending power would be. We're hearing all sorts of mixed mash of messages. Sales are up, sales are not as big as last year, etc. I think the latter would be much more appropriate, because the people have got less money to buy as well. And COVID-19's hit us pretty hard here as well economically. The other thing of that as well, over the course of the next 3 months and even of course the next 6 months as well, seeing generally around the whole world where capitalism is going as well. Obviously, what's been a big shot in the arm, I think, a real big boost to confidence for everybody is then a big strike they have, the biggest strike in human history in India, led by the Communist Party of India Marxists, and I also believe the other two communist organisations, the CPI and obviously the Socialist Unity Party, or not that Unity Party, I think Socialist Unity Organisation, something on that line, and obviously the Centre of India the Centre of Indian Trade Unions as well has been heavily involved in that. I think that's something that's been quite inspirational, and how they just united farmer and worker together and just taken on the Modi government. But I believe the strike is still continuing at the moment. I don't have any live update. I'll have to look into that further. I might ask some comrades if they can enlighten me a little bit later on, bring me up to date where that is at. But that's certainly something, and I think we've actually, as us responsible as Marxists, as communists, socialists, whatever, even just general people who give a shit, what we need to do is actually get that out there amongst the working class and tell it, because we're not going to rely on anyone else to bring that to our attention. Actually, what we're actually here in Australia, what we need to do is the ACTU, not just to acknowledge it, we need them to actually bring that out. This is what's happening. This is what needs to happen. This is what needs to be done. And currently as well, we need to actually be ready and organise and build our forces up so we can prepare to take the system on. Because while they're trying to find ways to divide us further, action is going to actually be outright impossible as well. And I've seen that what's happened when there's been disunity, and we want to try to get to somewhere and we just haven't been able to. So that's something that certainly something picks up, and hopefully we're seeing struggles intensifying in other countries as well. It obviously both in the what we call the Western countries and also the global South, everywhere else where struggles intensifying. What the upside about it, and the shot in the arm, is that I know for a fact is imperialism is on the way out. It will become more reactionary as it comes along. Anything that's going out of being becomes a lot more reactionary, but it just comes to show you it's going out of being. What we just need to happen is now get united and have and the strength to actually take it on and give that little nudge over the cliff to get rid of it as well. But that, as I said, that big strike in India has certainly been very inspirational, and obviously my hat's off to all the Indian working class and the farmers and all the organisations such as the Communist Party of India, Marxists. They've certainly done some excellent work, and there's a lot to learn from that as well, I think. I think we've been too divided for too long, and they just brought in what's united. And like I said just a little while ago, we're going to have multitudes of opinions and ideas about moving forward, but we've got to be united on a lot of certain things. We've got to be united against imperialism. We've got to be united also to move just not against imperialism, but united to achieve socialism as well. And I think that's vitally important. Without unity, once again, without unity, action is impossible. So that's it's something we've got a lot of work to do ahead in the new year. Obviously, we're just at the moment. I am enjoying this break. I certainly needed it. I didn't actually just sit idly by during this year. I have been on the road a lot of meetings, a lot of agreements. I've had to renegotiate. I've actually got a lot more next year. And yes, a lot of employers out there are screaming broke at the moment. We can only offer you a tiny little amount, but it doesn't surprise me at all. But we also too, certain times there may have to be a tactical thing to accept a certain offer, as long as we have had other improvements. The most important thing is we do need to build our strength up on the ground. I think the following year for us here in Australia, we've got a lot of work to do. Just general stuff about international travel and that. Well, look, I can't see anything at the moment happening. We may start with certain countries around the world. I was planning to actually go to America at the end of Easter this year. I was actually going to meet Caleb Maupin and all those in the Centre of Political Innovation, which was happening. And unfortunately, I booked my ticket in January this year and I'm ready to go. And we're hearing all the cases about the virus starting to spread. And then it came March, just it all fell apart pretty quickly. And so I've still got my ticket in reserve there. But look, I for the moment, I'm not trying to be pessimistic or that, but I just can't see at the moment that happening at the moment, especially the situation in the US, us travelling over there very quickly at all. Hopefully they can get that under control, but I don't even have any confidence in the new government, the government elect over there. Actually, just on the US elections, obviously we're seeing Trump's dying days. He's just caved in about the $600. I think that was to do with their welfare unemployment scheme to kickstart the economy. Look, he was doing a lot of those things to not sign anything out of vindictiveness and spite. It was all about Trump. It wasn't. Trump's about Trump. That's all about. And it comes down to he wasn't interested interested in the genuine welfare of working class people there in the US. If he was generally interested, it would be a certainly different outcome and different situation than what we'd be looking at the moment. But yeah, just seeing that, it didn't surprise me, but I think in the end there. The other one as well is also that one about the defence budget, over $1 trillion, I think, or I think it's more than that. Obviously, I think the defence budget over there doesn't need any more spending at the moment. I think we could use that $1 trillion into much better projects, such as building new roads and railways, improving the cities again, their quality drinking water, getting people working full-time on good, decent union jobs as well. Just certain basic things. But obviously, will that happen? Well, we all know the answer to that. I don't need to repeat it for you. So we'll obviously look and see how we move forward, how it moves forward there. But what's going to be interesting in the new year too, with the new government coming in under Biden. I'm like the rest of you. We've got no illusion, or we've got no. Let me just rephrase that again. Look, I don't think really it's going to be. How can I put it this way? I've got the word. You know what happens when I'm right on a roll? I get a word. I wanted to actually say it, and I've forgotten completely the word. It's just gone right out. Oh, I hate that. But look, we're not under no illusion where they're going to go. They're going to try to increase warfare even more. They're going to escalate situations in Latin America, and obviously maybe go do outright invasions of certain countries. Do not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think we've just got to be ready and organised to have a consistent fight back and how we deal with it at the time. They're all war hawks one way or the other. And believe me, Biden's got some real nasty people around him as well. So the situation, I think, will not improve for the American people at all, and for people around the world wide. But this is what I was saying. Imperialism is slowly going out of being. It's becoming more reactionary. But what's actually the upside of it? Libertarianism, the synthetic left, all that type of ideology has been exposed for what it really is too. Tools of imperialism, the ideologues of imperialism. And it's put the upside of it. I know Caleb Morpin's just done a discussion on that, a live chat. Those ideologies have been exposed for what they really are. And it just shows you how anti-working class they are, how pro-imperialist they are, and just how bad, obnoxious. And I have to say this, I know it's not professional, and the fucking wankers that come up with these ideologies in the first place, just to truly show what they are, wankers. And I think it's good in an aspect that we're growing as a force as well, slowly and surely. What I'm trying to do here in Australia is not about me, but we're trying to build that infrastructure. I know a few other comrades as well. I mentioned Comrade Freaky before, and if he is watching this, or you do come across this, a big shout out to you as well. He lives in Darwin, I'm led to believe. So, what we're all trying to do here is trying to build an infrastructure and build our force as well. I think it's definitely needed. We've been divided for far too long, divided little sects and little sects as well, not SEX. So sorry about that pronunciation. And so we've been divided for far too long, and I think something like this, a good think tank, and also an organising model as well to how we're going to effectively organise, engage with the masses, and get the masses organised to take on to the masses from the masses. So that's what we're trying to do here in Australia, along with everyone else, both in the UK, in US, Canada, Europe, everywhere else around the world. And just going back to that big strike in India, that certainly has a big shot in the arm for everybody here. And I think we've got a lot to learn from there as well. So going back to those ideologies as well, I'm glad they've been exposed for what they really are. I'm glad they have been. Interesting. I was, I'm on break. I'm hearing people, all sorts of opinions about China and all these other things. Well, actually, I'm seeing right through it now, and it's been good to learn actually from everybody, and so the knowledge I've got. It's good to actually have that knowledge of Marxism, Leninism, the scientific socialism, to have that understanding of dialectical and historical materialism. When I first learned that, it was like having the curtain raised above me. I can see things differently. I can see right through a lot of stuff as well. And this has been, now we're all engaging with each other internationally. This has been good to feed off each other and and really bounce off each other and we'll share ideas and share our knowledge as well and bring that knowledge together and put it into action as well. So I'm seeing it happen. A lot of good things happening there as well. So actually, like I've said to a lot of people around the world, you actually are all on the right path. Interesting enough, it was interesting. Earlier this year, prior to the whole COVID-19, it's during the big climate action rallies. There was an organisation called the Worker Students Alliance here in Melbourne. They've been doing some really good work. And myself and actually National Education Officer from the union went over a couple of beers with them in a pub after one of the big rallies. And we were talking to them. And I just said to them, well, guys, you're already on the right track. You don't need me to tell you what to do. And I said, I refuse to tell you what to do. You guys are already on the right track. If you want any suggestions or advice, whatever, or any support, let me know. And it's good to actually know that. And there's another organisation too, US Labour Against War and Racism. And I thought when I was looking at their YouTube channels and looking at their website, I thought, well, gee, if Karl Marx and Engels walked into the room right now, they'll be basically saying, you don't need us here. You're already on the right path. So I asked you you guys are on the right path, and I'm glad you see us do it. Is the struggle going to be hard? Yes, it will be. Lenin did say the struggle is a long and tedious one. And I think we've got to understand we're going to be up against all sorts of things in the future. There's sorts of block objections and that from others, differences of opinion, etc. But that's what we've got to have, that dialogue. That with everybody as well. So, and we've got to learn too. Sometimes our opponents can be our best teachers as well. We can always learn a lot as well. But at the same time, I think we're doing quite a good job. But I mean, we do not have vast amounts of money behind us. We don't actually have, and other organisations such as the capitalist class have. But we do have a good sound ideology. We also have history behind us as well. We have the experiences of the USSR, the building of socialism there. We have China behind us as well, in the sense we can learn from them as well. We can learn all these revolutions that happened over the 20th century and now into the 21st century. Look at Venezuela, look at Bolivia, and now India as well. So there's a lot to learn from. We've got that, and we're actually growing in experience and knowledge. The more interesting, this is interesting. The more the capitalist class wants to throw at socialism and Marxism, the stronger it gets. And every day it's been further proven correct in a stance. Capitalism has got not where to go anymore, besides push it over the edge and confine it to the dustbins of history. So we are doing an exceptionally good job otherwise. I mean, yes, we've got to obviously look at our work, see where we come from, where we're going, and see what we need to improve. There's always that improvement. And yes, look, we're going to cop a lot of criticism as well. And just on criticism and self-criticism, I think, look, as long as it's comradely as well, it's not, you don't have to get harsh about it. Keep focused on the issue, not the actual person as well. So anyway, that's where we're at the moment. It was good to actually conduct this live today. I said I do apologise. I hadn't been able to do it during the week, but I did need to spend some time with my own dad too. It's quite important. I mean, that's not to say he's going to die tomorrow. That's not going to happen. But he is elderly. He's in his late 70s, and people might say, "Oh, he's had a few years," but he has got a couple of conditions, and so no one lives forever either. So I think any good quality time, it's vitally important for all of you comrades as well. Sometimes it's good to actually spend some good quality time with your immediate friends and families as well. So it's you don't need my permission to do that. I certainly had to do that and have that bit of quiet time out. But obviously, we've got a huge task ahead of us next year. For all around the world, we've got certainly a lot of work to do here in Australia. Well, I mean, we're only small in number at the moment, but we're looking to try and develop things further here in Australia next year as well. A lot of comrades are off just enjoying themselves while they can, and I thought it's good. I've got the month of January off, so I'll be doing a few more of these lives over the course of that month as well before I get raced back into work on the 1st of February. So, look, I also want to thank you all again too for joining on tonight. Please share this far and wide with everybody on your Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, whatever type of social media account is. Sorry, I just got to stop up. I've got a very soft chair at the moment. So yeah, if we can, I'm just trying not to sink too far into it. It's a very comfortable chair, mind you. But anyway, back to what I was saying. If we can get this sharing far and wide, as I said, look, we're trying to build this community and infrastructure further up. I think all this engagement we're having with everyone around the world, it's been fantastic, and that's what we've got to do, because we're international. We're an international force. Working class is international, and we can all learn from each other. And and also too, it's great to hear from comrades around the world what's happening in their respective countries and their respective localities. And I'm sure actually too to hear from what's happening here in Australia. I think another reason why I do these lives. When I was watching Caleb and Comrade Reese and many others doing these live videos, it ain't dawned on me as well. And I thought, why aren't we doing it here? Simple as that. Do we have to wait for someone to come along and give us permission to do so? No, let's just get up and do it. And I encourage you all to do it. Just get up and do it. And Caleb actually mentioned about becoming a journalist. Get up and do it now. You don't have to go to a special university and learn the Harvard School of Journalism, or go to the Oxford School of Journalism whatsoever. You can actually start writing, contributing in that way as well. So and plenty much more writing as well, but doing these live chats has been excellent. So thank you once again. I'm going to finish up today. I'm going to do a few things, but I'm back on the road tomorrow. I'm going to be catching up with some friends for New Year's Eve. Quite a couple of very close friends of mine that live in across the border, and it'll be some good quality time with them as well. So look, once again, thank you for joining on board. Again, I will be doing, just be careful this weekend. We've just got to work the time out, because I'm aware with Comrade Reese, there is a significant time difference between here and the UK. And also believe with the US and the UK as well, there's a 5-hour time difference on the east, from the east coast of the US to the UK, and there's 11-hour time difference. So I'm just trying to work that out so we can play it. I believe, and if needs be too, I can even start earlier if it has to be first thing in the morning. So I'm flexible that way. And so once we've got the actual time set in, please lock on to Working Class Revolt on Dust James's channel as well. So that's it. That's it for today. Keep up the great work, comrades, and thank you for the support as well for doing it. Let's support each other. We're all in this struggle together. I know I was accepted off dare to struggle, dare to win, but I also love the saying of what Mark said: workers of all countries unite. Thank you.